So anyways, after we save Rui,
And critique on the art style for this game, why are their eyes so far apart?
we are on the search for answers, leading us around the first town Phoenix to see what else the enemy Team Cypher is up to, which involves them shaking down the town mayor.
What the hell is Xehanort doing in the Pokemon universe? Oh, wait, right, Pokemon runs on a Disney station now.
Yeah, this guy just gives off the vibe of bad guy. I mean, his hair is blowing an entire lack of wind. That just screams bad guy. Wait, never mind. Every Pokemon trainer in this game has that happening to them. Why is that? It's only supposed to work for evil people and complete badasses. But yeah, the mayor's fine, if a bit scatterbrained. Him directing us to try out the town training pre-gym,
Because there are no actual Pokemon gyms in Ouray.
and the Pokemon Stadium in the back. I mentioned them before, but all the stadiums in the game feature 4-round knockout battles, where the trainers just bring in stuff until you're done KOing everyone. Well, the latter ones allow Shadow Pokemon, the one in Phoenix doesn't, so it'll be a while before you'll have a full team to compete here, though competing is worth it. Each stadium has 4 sets of rounds for a total of 16 battles per stadium. With each round, you clear giving up a mix of useless and useful TMs, among them being the excellent Brick Break.
Which I use almost religiously in Gen 3, but as I don't have anything in this game that isn't a quadruped, I can't use it here. Damn it.
As well as Shadow Ball and Solar Beam. If you're like myself and grab Bayleaf from the Shadow Pokemon starter stash, you'll need it, as once Bayleaf evolves in Megadium, it otherwise won't learn Solar Beam until it hits the 60s.
Which was another thing that pissed me off about Gen 2. You didn't have the best skills to face the Elite Four since you faced them in the 40s, and most Mon were still in the standard leveling tier scales.
And Shadow Ball, as said, will be needed for Umbreon to do damage that's better than its Feint Attack move. Even though Feint Attack takes advantage of same type attack bonuses and the Black Glass's hold item, which makes it damage dealing close but not quite to the 80 attack point move.
Seriously though, while Umbreon can learn Dark Pulse in Gen 4 onwards from TMs, why do they never learn Crunch?
At the stadium, though, we run into some of the former Team Snag'em members who cost Wes, giving his backstory about him being the best Pokemon thief of the team, but it's not explicable to them or the audience why he quit and demolished the team the way he did. And unfortunately, we're never given his reason. As to Rui, good or bad, he's simply her gallant prince in a trench coat who came to her rescue.
And oh yes, I shipped them. They look good together, even though that is the total sum of character we get about Wes until the end of the game.
Still, learning of the Snag Machine is what gets Ruri interested in stealing back the Shadow Pokemon from Team Cypher, and those they've distributed them to in order to heal their trauma. Meaning we gotta go back and track down Pokeballs from, as said, the guy who runs the Train Car Cafe. Once that's done, head back to Phoenix City in order to find it swarming with Team Cypher minions. All led by...
Oh god! Who gave Shoto Todoroki an afro? Can you imagine trying to take that character seriously if Kohei Horikoshi made him look like that in My Hero Academia?
Yeah, that's one of the Team Cypher generals, Mirror B. And him, Disco never died.
Okay, technically he's into Samba. He has an entire team full of Ludicolos, but afros are only good for disco. And regardless, he never stops dancing the disco. Thus, to go along with the Xehanort clone, I'm just renaming him Disco Stew.
Hey! Your fish are dead.
And yeah, he's here for us as he was behind Rui's abduction. Nonetheless, he sticks his minions on the town in an attempt to take us down, which of course fails miserably as we've got a tank in Umbreon, a speedy glass cannon in the form of Espeon, and a sack full of balls.
Phrasing.
With which to steal Shadow Pokemon with. As you prowl around the town though, keep an eye out for 3 mooks in specific. 1 red, 1 blue, and 1 green. As you can probably guess, each one bears one of Johto's 3 starters in their first evolution forms, Bayleaf, Croconaw, and Quilava. You can only go after one of them, with the other 2 disappearing after the encounter. As said before, since I knew I was going to encounter Johto's legendary dogs eventually from prior experience, I decided to go ahead and grab Bayleaf so as to not waste time on a type overlap that just get usurped down the line. But Mirror B gives us a hint to their primary headquarters being in the adjacent town of Pyrite, which is swarming with hostile would-be gangsters and those bitter about having to deal with them. There's shadow Pokemon aplenty here, but as you can guess from my irritants at even catching them, even getting the early ones is a pain due to having few to no abilities that cause status ailments to make this easier. You've no idea the number of times I had to reset the game when I was just trying to grab some of these, at a time when I needed them to actually fill out the party. Would you, goddamn this black sheep, come home! You'll end up needing to talk to everyone in town to eventually get tipped off that the last shadow Pokemon holder you'll need to fight to move on was actually the guy who met us in town. Because, of course. Which in turn tips us off that the big building in the back is their hideout, and the reason they haven't been run out of town is they're keeping a Pokemon of one of the town officials, a man named Duking, hostage as blackmail. Thus they have free reign to distribute the Shadowmon as they please in the town's Colosseum. We actually have to talk to Duking to get into the matches too, but not in the way you'd expect. See, in the back of his office is a secret door hidden behind a bookshelf, inside of which is the Secret Kids Network, an organization formed by the bored-with-nothing-to-do kids of the region to basically act as an underground spy network.
I'd call that ridiculous, but street urchins acting as a source of information is a fictional trope that goes back so far it's in the Sherlock Holmes stories made by Arthur Conan Doyle, to say nothing of the writer scouts from the 70s tokusatsu shows that had a cultural influence on Japanese writers.
But hiding back here lets us see Duking having an argument with his friend Silva, who storms off and steals the gear needed to maintain the town's power. This act of sabotage also shuts down the Colosseum, so we gotta find that gear, which just ends up laying in a pile of scrap outside the construction yard of an entire battle tower that's under construction, in a desert.
Seriously, why build that in a desert? Towers are meant to save space in densely populated regions. This place has space to spare. The finished structure at its top is pretty freaking wide, like UFO saucer section mounted on a Space Needle wide. You could have just constructed that place on the freaking ground, no problem.
But returning the gear impresses Duking, and with Silva's chewing out weighing on him, he asks us to check out the Colosseum instead, thus finally allowing us to enter the knockout brawls, where 5 trainers enter and only 1 leaves. With that done, we've suitably impressed the Team Cypher talent scout, and here we see that Disco Stew's subordinates aren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed. And thus, we get into their hideout, and proceed to climb and wreck the place and steal every shadow Pokemon not nailed down. There are a few in here that are some difficult catches though. In particular is a pair of battles slammed right together, where each trainer has a shadow Pokemon. So if you're trying to get all the shadows to eventually get a chance at Ho-Oh,
which you don't really need to do in 2019 because Heart Gold and Soul Silver are a thing, and the originals are also on the 3DS's Virtual Console.
well, it can be a tough pair of battles to catch both of them without fail. But unfortunately, though we rescue Silva, Disco Stew has decided to dance the night away elsewhere and escape our pursuit, into the cave network under Pyrite Town that is interconnected with the town's underground aqueducts, meaning we need to chase him down there. Fortunately, it's not actually a maze to navigate, but the time sake to move back and forth in and out of it is a bit of a pain, as we don't exactly have the spare cash right now to drag along with us a fair amount of HP recovery items or move point restoring items. But eventually, we find Disco Stew and his backup dancer Ludicolo's.
Now, for a few reasons, I often have issues fighting Lotad's evolutionary line due to it having that strange type combination that makes it immune to or not having weaknesses against most of what I end up having accessible in my Pokemon move pool. And at the time I was at this fight, I didn't have any Pokemon with poison, flying, or bug moves that Ludicolo are weak to. I, for some reason, rarely get Pokemon that are poison types in my party. Flying types often get annihilated by the powerful stuff with these, so at best I have a Pokemon with Aerial Ace or Fly in my party. And bug types are bug types and often can't keep up in the late game, so I rarely invest my time in them. This all kind of is ironic, as the TM you get from winning the first set of Colosseum battles, it contains Toxic. Yeah, I kinda made this fight harder on myself.
Though backing up his backup dancers this time is the shadow Pokemon Sudowoodo. Something I didn't expect because no one expects Sudowoodo. Regardless, Disco Stew is defeated and he stomps away in a huff, declaring he'll defeat us next time with his elegant dancing moves. But at least we got Duke King's Pokemon, a Plusle, back for him. Until the Plusle decides it wants to help out and Duke King lets it join our party.
Where it is immediately boxed because I already took a Flaffy from the Circle of Friends, and it does far better electric damage until I can steal back Raikou later.
Though there's an odd thing I found out about the game by chance at this point that I think was meant as one of the game's secret extra bosses. If you go back down into the caves, as I needed to as I missed some item boxes in the room where Plusle was being kept, you can encounter a Disco Stew copycat named Miracle Bee. Whatever you do, don't challenge him at this point in the game. He is ridiculously hard right now. Later is a different matter entirely, but right now you should more focus on taking the advantage of the town's fortune teller,
because of course a place like this would have one,
and head to a gate village to finally return Ruri home. Where it turns out Ruri was raised by her grandparents who are the ones that look after Celebi's shrine in the Relic Forest. And Team Cypher are interested in the place as well due to both Celebi's native purification powers and its time abilities that can retcon the damage they've done out of a Shadow Pokemon's influence. Hell, they likely want one themselves to turn it into a Shadow Pokemon to keep that from happening.
What are the odds that would happen? Oh wait, that happened in one of the Pokemon movies already. Yep, fun fact about that movie. It was really going to be a story arc in the Pokemon anime. For those who watched the Johto seasons, do you all remember the GS Ball subplot? You better get ready to die! Yeah, right, of course they do. The GS Ball originally was meant to lead to an in-canon encounter with Celebi instead of the movie. But when they decided to make the movie, they scrapped the subplot instead, leading to regular Pokemon anime writer Shoji Yonemura, yes, that Shoji Yonemura, who I've eviscerated the bad works of previously, being the one who ended the subplot in the most anger-reducing way possible. Like, there's a legitimate reason I call the guy a hack.
But that's all revealed later, actually. At the moment, we're tipped off that Team Cypher are trying to get through Celebi by means of stealing an item that will call Celebi to them. The Time Flute.
Shouldn't that be the Ocarina of Time?
Which is held by the crew that runs Mount Battle, a massive gauntlet of trainers all set up on platforms wrapped around Ore's highest mountain.
Though even climbing that thing later for training had me scratching my head in confusion and a bit of sympathetic panic. I am ridiculously scared of heights to the point that I have at times had panic attacks at work when I'm assigned to work on the 4th floor of my building. Though that latter part's because my center of mass is above the guardrails, and due to assholes at work, I've almost fallen over the goddamn guardrails, but this is a nightmare made manifest.
I mean, just look at these platforms. That's a lawsuit in the making, as these are raised at a distance above ground that anyone falling off, yeah, anyone unlucky enough to have that happen is going to hit terminal velocity. Hell, this gets worse. Ones deeper into the mountain are all placed over the top of open lava rivers, and there isn't a single guardrail to be seen. These platforms are supposed to be battle rings, where attacks regularly explode from their intersecting contact. What idiot invented the safety regulations for this place? Fortunately, though, you don't have to go through the entire 100 trainer gambit.
Yet, though before the game's final boss I got through the first 70 trainers.
But only the first 10, which has been taken over by cypher plants and supporters, all under... Oh my god, these guys just look so stupid. Who could possibly take these morons seriously? This guy is the one that's enslaved Entei, and thanks to MVP Umbreon saving us from defeat, we get the time we need to seal Entei in a timer ball to save it from itself.
Amusingly, though, Colosseum's probably the easiest time you'll have at capturing the legendary dogs, who are notorious for running from battle if you try and find them when they're rogue in the normal regions.
And also from it, you'll get the first of 3 potential Time Flutes. Each of these 3 can cause Celebi to the shrine to instantly purify any Shadow Pokemon at any stage of influence. But it is only at this point, pretty damn deep into the game, where we finally get our chance to purify our party members from their Shadow Pokemon status, a lot of whom have been kept waiting for such a while. They leave instantly becoming a Meganium, and a Flaffy have kept as a paralyzing instrument in Ampharos.
It immediately gets renamed Lighthouse, because of course.
And while we are here in a gate village, take the time to swing around to the back of it, as if you follow a hidden path, you can find an experience share which helps immensely in getting back up to the level of the shadow Pokemon you've just freed. Between needing to purge Entei before progressing further and the evolutions being in the 40s, it is heavily needed.
This is pretty much where the progression on anything just begins to stop for hours at a time. First, it's getting everybody to level 40 so we can actually continue the story. Then we do a bit more new content, and then it's immediately back to grinding 5 levels for hours. Then it's a bit more story after that, then 5 more levels with everyone. After you start being able to purify stuff so Shadow Pokemon can actually level, any forward momentum just grinds to a complete halt.
But once we're back on track to moving in the story, the next place hit up is the mystery lab that we got told about somehow.
Okay, fair admission, I have no idea how I learned of the place. Either it was from the guy I got Entei from speaking of it, or some person I got I seriously don't remember and couldn't find in checking the footage.
But we can't get in here yet. Instead, it prompts us to be sent an email on Wes's PDA, yes he has one and gets those, from Duke King. He apparently nabbed 2 more Cypher Grunts who are in Pyrite Town's jail. From them, you get a key to an elevator in their hideout that you previously couldn't use, that sends you down into the Undertown. Who run Undertown? That's right, Team Cypher. All managed by this propaganda-spewing witch named Venus.
Hey, hold on a second. Where is this town? I mean, the cave network that connected with Pyrite Town's aqueduct system isn't all relatively above this. Does this mean the town is below the waterline? How? Why? Was it put together in that chasm you can see up top? Why would you put a town like this in the middle of an open chasm in the modern day? I mean, I got why older civilizations did that with caves they dug in the sides of ravines. Convenient protection from the elements when housing technology was synonymous with hanging animal skins on branches tied together with reeds and twigs, but I have so many questions over this.
But by finding the next few members of the Kids Network down here and restoring their network access via finding their operatives, we're outed as a spy. And by fighting the residents sent after us, we get access keys to Dr. Wily's UFO from the classic Mega Man games. Well, it ferries us over to Venus's broadcast studio, where we can kick her ass and steal for ourselves her Suicune. She then leads us over to a secret train car that connects us directly to Cypher's secret lab. Unfortunately, we can't enter the lab, as a pair of Cypher Grunts sees us, and instead of locking and barricading the door so we can't get in...
Because obviously this is a Pokemon game, and in Pokemon games you never, use the power of a Pokemon to bust the door down. I mean, why even get Voltorbs if you can't use them as recyclable grenades and shape charges?
But instead of doing the obvious thing, they instead blow up the floor. And by blow up the floor, I mean open a small crevice in the plating so that the underboards and supports that make it up are visible. So running on the back of a Pokemon who can jump it would easily get us access to the main lab.
There literally would have been more of an obstacle had they barricaded the door.
And this gets better. Or, well, worse for them. As the side we can access has a key in an item box that lets us in the front freaking door of the lab. How stupid are these people? So obviously with the key to the place in hand, now we can bust our way in the front door to fight through the grunts to the enemy boss running this lab experimenting on new ways to implement animal cruelty. I kind of get hung up with one thing here though. See, while it can be a bit tough to navigate through the lower section of the lab, and you can easily figure it out if you follow the good old method of traversing mazes of stick to and follow one continuous side to get through it, you can find your way. Well, the last security door is actually locked by pictographic lock. The only way to get past it is to find 2 DNA samples of Pokemon that are left in the lab, then go to a station in the deepest parts of the building.
Okay, now you can find the reader in beyond the elevator that is right next to the one that leads you to this lock.
Which tells you what 2 Pokemon are on the samples. It doesn't specify what order these 2 are in, but it reduces your odds of getting the code wrong immensely, and then it's just figuring out the order in which those 2 go in, followed by randomly selecting the 3rd one from 7 other options. So it's a reduction in possibilities down from, 504 possibilities to either 14 or 28, depending on how the math on that reads. Once you're through that door, you face the madman behind the Shadow Pokemon process, Ein, who has the Raikou we need to recruit. With him actually being angry, we thought to speak up and face off against them concerning their whole cruelty to Pokemon enslaving their will to make them borderline feral killers thing.
After all, Pokemon were meant to fight, not like this.
So after clearing the lab, we get a data disk on the shadow Pokemon Cypher's made, which we give to the kids in the Undertown, and from them we get a heads up that the construction site has finished their work on Realgem Tower, the site of the final confrontation with Team Cypher, which I get to after literally 5 hours of level grinding, only to find I'm facing the 4 generals I defeated previously, before I have to train yet another 5 hours to be ready for what's actually in the main tower itself.
No, seriously, I can't understate how grindy the final stage makes you be to even clear it. Like, you need such a level advantage that if you came in here to start with everything at level 50, then the rematch with the 4 prior bosses would be complete cakewalk. And then the second you're past all of them, then the rest of the trainers you fight are suddenly on your level. It's obnoxious.
The rematches incidentally all give you the color-coded keycards to even enter the main shaft
Hey, phrasing!
of the tower, to then face off against the other ace trainers that got invited, including not just Zehonort prowling around the place, but also Wes's old, oh my god, his eyebrows.
What is with the designs in this game? They're gaudy and hilarious.
And yeah, this is the former head of Team Snag'em. How he got anyone to follow him while looking like that is beyond me. He tries the expected and standard Darth Vader, "Join me. With our combined power we can rule!" gambit, but only after he reveals that Team Snag'em was just an isolated cell part of Team Cypher, who supplied Cypher with all the Pokemon they went and experimented upon for the Shadow Pokemon process.
Meaning Wes is, in his own way, responsible for a lot of this happening since he was Team Snag'em's best Pokemon thief, and likely handed over a lot of the test subjects himself. So this whole game can be seen as one big redemption arc in Wes liberating and bonding with the Pokemon he sent to this hellish fate. That's kind of dark, and another reason I wish this game had an actual character for Wes that was more expanded upon, as that's some deep, heavy existential stuff right there that you only get from a flippant exposition dump at the end of the freaking game. We got more character out of Giovanni's actions in Gen 1 just by connecting the dots of events Team Rocket was involved in and where they had things you encountered.
So yeah, final round time, with us going up the elevator to face Zehonort, and it lets us in the game's final Colosseum, and what ultimately can be considered the Ore region's Elite Four, each bearing their own powerful shadow Pokemon, which I just stopped caring about at this point of the game, so just barreled on through with Suicune and Raikou double-teaming blasts of Rain Dance, Thunder, Surf, and Blizzard, Megane Mente unleashing Sunny Day Solar Beam and Fire Blasts, and if I needed to, Espeon Psychic Shockwaves in tandem with Umbreon just taking the damage. At level 50, if you're smart and paying even halfway decent attention to move weaknesses and tactics, well, these guys are a bit challenging, but you're only fighting a normal-type specialist, a dark-type specialist, a fire specialist, and a plant specialist.
The first two, to me, being the hardest because, again, I wish I could have fit in a fighting Pokemon on my team. If I ever play this again, I'm using that freaking Makuhita, or possibly the Hitmontop you get at level 38, as otherwise I don't have much that's effective against those two. But the other pair, Surf, Fire Blast, Psychic, you're done. If you don't care about still grabbing Shadow Pokemon, each of them has one to their name, we're pretty much done here.
It is also the only Colosseum knockout battle where your Pokemon aren't healed between each bout, too, so it might actually struggle a bit more depending on how well-trained your team is. But it's not impossible. And fortunately, you are healed between your last match with the Grass Specialist and your face-off with the Zehonort XP, who, if you're still collecting Shadow Pokemon at this point, has a level 50 Metagross for you to steal. But surprisingly, Zehonort here is not the last enemy in the game. Oh no, just like Kingdom Hearts ended up revealing, several times over, the one we've been fighting is all just a patsy. We were just led to thinking he was the big bad guy by how we kept encountering him and how everyone was subservient to him. But nope, he can't be the bad guy in all of this. Who is? The mayor of Phoenix City?
What? What?
I seriously don't get this. This guy wanted to take over a Pokemon region? Why? I'm not sure if he noticed, But this place is in god-awful condition. Why would you want to take over this place by experimenting on and enslaving abused Pokemon to turn them into killing machines? The guy already ran the best cared-for city in this freaking place and put together this entire tower project through some unknown means of financing. Dude, fund some public outreach programs and construction activities that elevate the quality of living, and they'd review you as a freaking god with how desolate this place is. There was no need for the evil world domination scheme or repeating the sins of the Republican Party.
And people say Team Flare had the worst villain motivations of the Pokemon teams.
I seriously have nothing to respond to with this. This plot twist just completely threw me for a loop, as I don't understand it at all. Why is this guy a big bad villain? And similar to the windless movement of clothing and hair, how is this guy just floating like that once he outs himself as the bad guy? As I've said before, the level rating for this game is all types of strange. The mayor's team made up of level 60 Pokemon you can beat while having level 50s. Bar the Tyranitar that is his final Pokemon that I just straight up steal with no fuss using a Master Ball I got from Rui's grandfather earlier. Yeah, you get an email from him earlier in the tower. That's your tip-off for when you get it handed over. It'll save you time and patience, especially if you're one of the players who, like me, screwed up your chances to get Ho-Oh in the post-game. After all, nothing inside the game tells you it's going to be there or that is its unlock conditions. But nonetheless, after you kick the mayor's ass and he gets arrested after all of his misdeeds were added by him stating them with literal thousands of spectators as witnesses to his confession, that same Ho-Oh you'll be aiming to capture just appears above everyone as a sign of just how far out of reach your true end goal of getting the Gen 2 legendaries in Gen 3 would have been.
But joke's on this game, as the DS, 3DS, and special event releases of legendary Pokemon have us completely covered on that. Pokemon Colosseum, it has some good ideas, and the psychological subtext behind the trauma needed to create Shadow Pokemon is very deep, but the game drags in too many areas to really feel like it's good. And with the processing limitations of the GameCube limiting how big and how much area or places we can even visit, Ori feels just too small and content-starved to feel anything but dated.
Now, from what I've been told, this game's sequel, SD Gale of Darkness, the game made to give Gen 3 players access to Lugia, and any Gen 1 or 2 Pokemon that might have fallen through the remaining cracks, which I have in turn never at all played, it supposedly fixed some of the complaints I had with this game. Leveling was more even and better paced, there was more actual character to the inhabitants of Ori, and more places to explore and visit. You could purify Shadow Pokemon faster, earlier and easier, and the story was more tangibly felt than just go to a place and do the thing. But honestly, at this point even playing either of them is pretty obsolete. Every Pokemon generation is now playable on the Nintendo DS upwards via either porting the games or the generational remakes. It's been unnecessary since Heart Gold and Soul Silver released in 2009 to even pick up and care about these games beyond just coming to experience Ori itself, since all the Pokemon it was made to give you can now be found easily elsewhere. If it had less of a grind and let us start purifying Pokemon earlier, like say, before we had to go to Mount Battle, then I think it'd have been a bit more balanced. As it is though, well, I think I made the right choice way back in the 2000s to just stop playing this and focus on other things. As patience eventually allowed me to re-experience Kanto and Johto in updated forms that worked for me better than the Gen 1 and Gen 2 versions of them anyways, that I liked a lot better. So I had that experience connection people wanted to import out of the original Gen 1 and 2 games to begin with. Game Freak eventually solved the problem for you with a new, updated, and vastly more competently presented game than the one you had originally. So while you'd never be able to quite get back your original team and the legacy they had from your original Game Boy cartridges,
unless you happen to watch Linkara's 2015 tutorial video on hacking your way through pulling your Pokemon from the Gen 1 and 2 cartridges onto a game emulator and then porting the data itself into the Gen 3 systems. Assuming your Gen 1 and 2 cartridges batteries survived that long. It's expensive to do to get the hardware and software to do it, but you can do it.
It's still clear that Game Freak all this time was trying to meet all the Gen 1 and 2 players pissed off about the inaccessibility issue halfway in trying to give you back that type of Pokemon, even if it wasn't the same ones you first became invested in. And even if you don't like the remake versions of those games, the 3DS's Virtual Console re-release is available now, should still have you all covered if you want to re-experience it in its original form for getting those over to your current bank. There are still those who ultimately quit over it and still only care about the original Gen 1 and 2. I don't, and have been more open to everything beyond that. Because the reason Pokemon has lasted over 20 years and keeps coming back with more remains the same no matter what changes happen to the game's experiences. It's just you and your animal monster friends bonding and going stronger as you adventure and take on the world. It's a story engine that as long as we keep going to new places, or find the nostalgia to go back to revisit the old, or even find ROM hack custom games to try and have some fun with, will never truly go away.
But at least on my own peace of mind, I finally conquered yet another game that's hung over me for years, and in doing so got beyond Oh my god, I could have been making Thunderdome jokes all review! Damn it!